I
Liz is
see.
calling from California, pronouns she, her, wants to talk about science in the Bible. Hey, Liz, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Pretty good.
Good, I hope. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to suggest that. Okay, I believe in God in this sense. The universe, this stardust we all seem to be made of, or are made of, it has figured out a way to observe itself and have us wonder about it.
How would
There's
you
there's
demonstrate, Liz? How would you demonstrate
yes.
that the universe figured out a way to observe itself? That sounds like it was searching for a way to observe itself and intentionally came upon a solution to observe itself. How do you demonstrate that?
That's good. Really a very good question. It's the intent that I think that God is the intent itself. In other words, well, I'm trying to think of a good way to put this. It's really difficult to actually articulate this, but it's the fact of the matter that is God. The fact of the matter that we are able to observe and wonder about stardust. We are stardust, wondering back at itself, like looking in a mirror.
So
And
before there were
aware.
before any of us conscious beings existed, are you saying there was no God?
I'm not saying one way or the other. God just is that state of being that is our consciousness. I don't think the God of the Bible.
But Liz, listen to you. You're saying that God is our state of consciousness. So before there was any such thing as our state of consciousness, that means there is no God.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. That's not
it's what you're saying.
How I meant that. Well,
I'm only using your definitions
it may
here
be somewhat what I'm saying. I may have stated it incorrectly, so let me try again, please. And I really am going at this from not a faithful of the God of the Christian Bible either. I've read it a few times. I've read the Apocrypha. I've read the scrolls, the War Scroll, the all of these, the Antiquities of the Jews, Josephus and Eusebius. I've read this information.
Yeah,
I still believe, and I've listened to Brian Cox, who is a physicist. I listen to the different.
But we're just interested in what you believe and why you believe it.
Those things, God is those things. As we see, our brain is now we can see our brain now on a scan and see the connections it's making. And it's very, as the science is discovering with all of our new technology, our brains are very much like the universe. We cannot say there is a God. We cannot say there isn't a God because God is not a tangible
Yet you believe there
thing.
is. Why do you believe there is if you say we can't?
There is because I believe there are infinite things we do not know.
Okay. Among the infinite things that we know, among the infinite things that we don't know, is one of them there are no gods?
We cannot know.
So you're saying, yes, that's one of the things that we don't know.
I tend to believe that there is
if we don't know,
God.
Liz, if we don't know whether or not there's a God, then you cannot have a justified position claiming there is or there isn't, right?
God made us in his image. We are God.
Now you're no longer being honest, so I don't know. Go ahead.
I am. I really am being honest. We are a manifestation, a physical manifestation of what a thinking, feeling being would be.
No, Liz. I asked specific questions about your definition, and your response was to say that God made us in our image. You went back to vomiting pablum instead of continuing the conversation the way we did.
I really am not.
Well, and I think
you really did. You absolutely did, but I'll stop.
Liz, I think that Matt made a really great point that I'm interested to hear your actual answer on. You said that you think there's all kinds of things you can't know or you don't know right now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And Matt asked, are one of those things one of those things you don't know is potentially that there are no gods? And you agreed that that's
Yes,
potentially a thing
I agree.
that could be true that you don't know yet. And so we're
Yes.
asking then, why would you jump to belief instead of non-belief? When the answer, if I'm following your logic, would be that you don't know.
So the reason I believe this is because of the scientific aspect of things that we do and do not know. The science is what proves God to me, in a sense, is what I'm trying to get at. The science is what proves God to me.
Science doesn't prove
but
God.
You just agreed that we don't know, that there's a chance no gods exist. You just agreed to that.
That's
So
right.
You're not making sense to me. It sounds like you're believing something.
But that means also that there's a chance that
Would you stop interrupting Eve and let her fucking talk, please?
I'd fucking be glad to.
Thank you.
I'm pointing out that following your own logic, which was agreeing that there's all kinds of things you don't know, which could include that there are no gods, then that would mean that you have no reason to actively believe in a God. But then you go back and say there's scientific reasons, but then you just agree. So I don't understand. Your answers are conflicting with each other. Can you see how that's confusing?
I can see how you're confused, but what I'm suggesting is that you're looking.
We're going to pause. We're going to pause for a second, Liz. I want to clarify something because I just had to go through this with the Freedom from Religion Foundation. When somebody says, "Can you see how that is confusing?" and your response is, "I see how you're confused," you are putting the blame on them rather than on you. You said something that is in conflict. And when somebody says, "Do you not see how confusing that is and how in conflict it is?" and you reply with, "I see how you are confused," you are putting the onus on them. Try putting the onus on yourself, since you're the one communicating ideas and doing it in ways that are confusing. That's all I wanted to say about that. Continue.
I see that it can be confusing to anyone, what I'm saying. That's not my point I was making at all, because I'm the kind of person that would just outright say what I think. In that sense, I'm just trying to be clear, and I'm not having any dogmatic view. I'm not dogmatic about it. I really don't care what anybody else believes. I don't attend church. Religion is bullshit. I think Christianity has its value, but I believe in God. And
none of this is answering the question at hand.
I'm saying to you that in answering your question, I do believe there's a God in the sense of there is we are the image of this God. Okay, I do believe that. What I'm telling you is that I believe there doesn't have to be a conflict between God and science. I believe
I'm sorry, Liz, but I need you to actually focus and answer the man. I need you to actually focus and answer the question we're asking. None of this was about, is there a conflict between religion and science? There's a conflict in your statements that we can't know something and that science convinces you there's a God. What science specifically convinces you that there is a God?
I would say the theories on light, it's the biology of our brains and the way our neurons send messages, electrical messages, chemical messages back and forth, and the kind of construct of what we know of in the universe, including the dark matter, including the star-making nebula. So there's a great the Big Bang. All the elements that were created are within our bodies. We are basically stardust. There's science there. Okay, but there's
no, stop.
There's a shade of our mortality, our place in the universe that looks.
Stop, Liz. Here's what you just said. I asked specifically, what science convinces you that there's a God? And your answer,
astrophysics.
Would you stop? Would you stop talking and let me finish my fucking thought?
Mm-hmm.
I asked you what specific science, and you gave an answer that I took notes on that was an incoherent, babbling bit of nonsense that did not address any specific anything or show how any specific scientific idea points to God. You said, well,
astrophysics.
Shut up. You said the theories on life, on astrobiology of our brains, the way they send messages, and the kind of construct of what we know of in the universe, including the dark matter and the star-making nebula and the Big Bang elements. You blurted forth a bunch of science words or science-y words, and at no point did you make a cogent thought, argument, or statement showing how a particular finding of science points to a God. Did you?
I think I pointed to multiple things that pointed to a God, which were astrophysics, biology. Those are different sciences, and I pointed to multiple sciences. I'm sorry.
Liz?
If you only wanted to narrow my answer to one science, then I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question. So the question
So you
was
misunderstood when I said you misunderstood. Shut up. Shut up. You misunderstood when I said what specific finding of science points to a God. And now, after going through your babbling list, you're saying astrophysics. Cool. What specific finding of astrophysics points to a God?
Well, it's the fact that there isn't one, a specific finding that points not to a God.
Oh, so there's Liz, not a specific finding of astrophysics that points to no God. Therefore, that's pointing towards God.
To me, in my opinion. I'm
sorry, but that is logically fallacious, and you and your opinion don't mean fuck all when we're evaluating whether or not science points to something. If science doesn't point to there are no multidimensional beings, does that mean there are multidimensional beings?
Possibly.
Okay.
I mean, that's what science is about, is discovery.
So Liz,
no, it's not.
We just
no,
believing...
you don't know or understand shit about science or its conclusions, Liz. That's becoming evident. You really fucking don't. You demonstrably don't. You know how to babble about science, and you know how to no, stop talking. You know how to babble and toss out science-y language, but you don't understand logical thought. You don't understand fallacies. You don't understand that if science doesn't exclude the possibility of God, that doesn't mean that God is then permissible. It may be that the God proposition is untestable and unfalsifiable, which means science, which isn't just thinking about stuff, will never be able to demonstrate it. So you've gone from we don't know to we don't know, but I believe, to we don't know, but I believe because of science. And absolutely none of the sciences agree with your conclusion. None of them.
Can I ask Liz a couple of questions?
Yep.
Please do.
So, Liz, do you think it's a good idea to believe something just because science hasn't disproven it?
Not necessarily. I just, in this particular question, in the sense of, you said proof there's a God, and I'm like, well, I don't try to prove there's a God. I just have my own beliefs that I believe, and it's.
So you just believe it because you want to believe it, essentially. Because I could present to you a bunch of other claims that science hasn't disproven, and I'm assuming, in the way that you're saying, I'm assuming you would probably not want to believe those things, and then you wouldn't, and you would use logic to, rationally explain why you don't need to believe those things. So why are you making an exception here? Is this just a personal thing where you just want to believe it, so you are?
The thing is with the sense of logic, when you try to mix logic and belief, you're going to have a conflict no matter what. Because belief is really the antithesis of logic.
No, it's not.
But you called in also saying that science is part of your reason for believing, but then here we are saying it sounds like the only reason you believe is because it's an option as far as things that you could believe without it being shut down immediately. But there's so many other things that we can't shut down immediately with science either, and I don't hear you believing those things. Because someone can call in and tell us that they think God told them, they can call in and tell us that they think God is an invisible pink unicorn that lives under my bed. And I can't use science to disprove that because it's an invisible, undetectable pink unicorn. And you guys both have the exact same good amount of reasons to believe the things that you're believing. And that's the problem here.
I listened to Brian Cox.
Well, you weren't even listening to me because you were in the middle of saying that sentence while I was talking.
But I'm trying to explain to you that I'm not just pulling this out of my rear end. I'm just saying that I listened to experts. I listened to Brian Cox and Michio Kaku.
Does Brian Cox believe in God? Does Brian Cox believe in God?
I don't know nor care.
I know. The answer is no.
I don't know or care. I don't know or care if somebody else believes in God. I really don't.
I don't know or care who you were listening to.
Yeah, I just think your dialogue is interesting. I think it's a good dialogue to have.
You are a waste of my time and everybody else's time because you don't know or care about how to get to truth. And you think because you listened, no, you don't. And you think because you listened to Brian Cox that you are therefore well-informed on a particular subject when you are absolutely not.
And
I think for me, Liz, I wanted to know if you I wanted to know, Liz, if you have a good reason. I wanted to know if you have a good reason for believing what you believe, Liz. And so far, the only answer you've actually given is that, well, science doesn't point against this. And to me, that's a terrible reason to believe something. And if you still want to keep believing this thing, then go for it. That's just where I'm landing throughout this conversation of listening to you. It's not a good reason. And you haven't given any other reason for this positive belief in something.
Because there's no reason when it comes to religion or belief systems. It's just a belief is a belief and a scientific fact or fact. And it's just that a lot of the science, especially the things we're newly discovering, just point to so many things that I've noticed as patterns in the Bible, the multiple times I've read it. And when I listen to experts on either any of the spectrum, I don't care what their belief system is or their bent. I listen to what their academic information has to offer, and I make my judgments. So I'm not completely uninformed. And if you look up Dr. James Charlesworth, he's the professor of the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Name one more person, and I will hang up on you. Name one more person, and I will hang up on you because you don't understand the fallacies of argument from authority or argument from ignorance. You are parading your ignorance around in epic proportion.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me on your show. I appreciate the opportunity to give you my opinion, and it was lovely.
Thanks for calling, Liz. I think we just never reached a moment where we heard, and I think you said it yourself, that there's no reason attached to this belief. And that's a fair assessment based off of what I just heard. So,
right. You can't mix.
But thank you for calling, Liz. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
No, I won't. Promise, call anybody else. Don't call me, Liz. Because when I say what science points to your belief in God, and when it ultimately gets down to, well, science doesn't disprove God. That's the paraphrasing of what you said. And because science hasn't disproved something, you've concluded it's possible. That is fallacious, and it is in fact false. The fact that something hasn't been shown to be false does not mean that it is possible. Possibility needs to be demonstrated. Additionally, no matter which scientist you read, oh, well, I don't care about their views. Oh, so the experts in the field who do not think that their information from their field points to God, You think their information does point to God. So you're going to conveniently cite all the people you've read. I've read Brian Cox. I've read this person. I've read this person, who don't agree with your conclusions. And then you throw them out because it doesn't matter. It's all just belief. There's no way to know. It's all just belief. It doesn't matter. I'm sorry, but logic and belief aren't the antithesis. Logic is what we use or should use to inform our beliefs. Belief is the state of being convinced that something is true or likely true. And you should be convinced for good reasons. You shouldn't become convinced of something merely because it hasn't been proven false, which is what Promise was trying to point out. You shouldn't become convinced of something just because you read something that you don't understand as well as the experts and you throw out their conclusions and substitute your own. You are not well informed. You are not engaged in reasoning. You've convinced yourself that since nobody knows, therefore nobody can know, which means you can believe any bullshit you want and never have to be proven false. And you might turn out to be correct, but you're not being rational. It may be the case that in the rest of your lifetime, nobody proves that your bullshit, useless concept of God is in fact false, and that it is in fact not even possible. But you don't care enough about truth to figure out how to find the truth. Instead, you just go with, ooh, I can believe whatever. And as long as it's unfalsifiable, that means I'll never be proved wrong. Congratulations. You are well on your way to establishing a new religion.
Thank you for watching that clip. If you enjoyed it, perhaps you should join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
At patreon.com/calltheline.